Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today is a bit of a reset day. I haven't done this in a long time, this style of video, but we are in need of some bread products today, so I'm going to be resetting and restocking our kitchen with some bread products. I'm going to be using recipes from this book that are specifically made for fresh and milled flour. Again, if you would like the link to this cookbook, it is in my description box, and you can grab it on Amazon whenever you'd like. So the first thing I'm going to be making today will be some pizza dough. I'm going to use that pizza dough to make some calzones, which is something that our family has really been enjoying these last few weeks. And then I'm going to be modifying a no-knead recipe so that I can make some buns for dinner. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my flatbread section and find the pizza crust recipe. I've shared this a few times on here before, and I can link videos showing that. But this is a recipe that I'm going to be making today, and again, I'm going to be making the pizza dough recipe, and I will be using the pizza dough recipe to make calzones. This is a very versatile dough, and I love it because you can take it and change it to fit whatever you need. So for us, this is a great lunch option. So I'm going to be putting my Nutrimill Harvest to work today because I need to mill quite a bit of flour for all the things that I will be making. I'm going to be starting with 3.5 cups of hard white wheat for this pizza dough, so let's get started. Okay, and just like that, I have all the flour I need for this recipe. A quick reminder, you always want to turn your mill on before you put your wheat berries in, because if you don't turn the mill on first, you're going to clog the mill. So always turn it on, then add the wheat berries. I always start my mill on a coarser setting, put the wheat berries in, and then I will slowly dial in to where I want my grain mill to mill the grain. So if I want coarse grains, I will have my dial set closer to this side of the mill, but if I want finer grain, I will have to bring it closer to this dial that I have here. I use this as my marker. So I always start with my dial closer to the right side, and then I will turn it slowly so that the machine can dial into the fineness that I want of the flour. When the machine is finished milling the grains that I'm milling that day, I always move my dial back counterclockwise. And so what's going on inside? I have 2 stone burrs, and they are pushing down against the berries, and they are causing them to be ground into this flour. So when I start the machine, I want them to be off each other just a little bit, and then I will start the machine, and they will press down on the grains, and then they will grind it into flour. When it's coming to an end, I will back them off each other so that it will finish completely without touching each other, and if they touch each other for too long, then they can malfunction. So we don't want that to happen. So towards the end, when you've finished most of the wheat berries, you want to back your dial a little bit more so that they can ease off each other and then complete the milling process. Okay, so in here I have 3.5 cups of freshly milled hard white wheat. I'm going to add this and some other ingredients to my bread machine bowl to make the dough for these calzones. Again, I will share this recipe if you're interested, and you can also find it in my latest cookbook. So in my bread machine bowl, I'm going to be adding 1 1/4 cup of warm water. The recipe calls for 1 tablespoon olive oil, but in this case, I'm going to be using avocado oil. Our family really doesn't love the strong flavor of olive oil, so I tend to use avocado oil much of the time because that's the flavor that we prefer. I'm also going to be adding some salt. I'm adding 1 1/2 teaspoons, sorry, of salt. I'm going to be adding some vital wheat gluten. I'm adding 2 tablespoons of vital wheat gluten. About 1 teaspoon of honey. You can also use sugar here or maple syrup. And then I'm going to add all of this flour. As with any recipe that calls for freshly milled flour, you're going to have to vary how much liquid you add. So I always start with the amount of liquid that the recipe calls for. However, I'm also going to add 1 or 2 tablespoons as needed, if needed, once I start the process of putting this together. And my last ingredient will be 1 teaspoon of instant yeast. So in here I have all the ingredients I need to make the pizza dough. I'm going to get this in my bread machine and get this going. Okay, so my bread machine is going and it is making the dough for the calzones. In the meantime, I'm going to be making a version of my no-knead overnight bread. The only difference is I'm not going to do the long fermentation process that usually happens overnight in the refrigerator. I'm doing a same day no-knead bread because we're going to need this for today's meal. So for this recipe, I'm going to be using my Nutrimill Harvest again to mill 3 cups of hard white wheat. I'm also going to be using 1 1/4 cup of water, some salt, similar ingredients to what I used before. I'm using honey, some vital wheat gluten, and some yeast. Very simple dough. I'm going to show you how I'm going to hand knead it to bring it together. Well, not hand knead it. I'm simply going to pull the dough together since it's a no knead recipe. And then I'm going to cover it and leave it until it's time for me to shape it and bake it. So I like this because it's very hands-off and I can get this prepared in the morning and then I can move on to something else. So to start, we're going to mill 3 cups of hard white wheat. Okay, so while this was milling, I added my salt and my vital wheat gluten. I'm just going to pull this dry ingredients together first. Since this is a same day recipe, I'm going to add my yeast to the water along with my honey. Give that a few minutes to activate. And then I'm going to add it to my dry ingredients. This is active dry yeast, so I don't have to worry about giving it too much time to bloom. It's already active. I just want it to dissolve as much of it as possible into my liquid before adding. So I've added the liquid to my bowl. And I'm just going to combine that, adding another bit of water. Okay, so I have combined all the ingredients. I added a touch more water because the dough needed it. And I'm going to now cover this down. As you can see right now, we just have a shaggy dough. It's not showing any gluten development or anything at all, and that is okay. If I wanted to put this in my refrigerator and allow it to do a cold ferment, I could absolutely do that. What I'm going to do now is to cover it down for about an hour, and I will come back in an hour and I'm going to do some stretch and folds. I will show what that means when I get back here in an hour's time, but right now this is perfectly what I'm looking for. I'm just going to leave this on my counter to develop some gluten for the next hour, and then I will show you how to do the next step. Alright guys, it's been about 30 minutes, and as you can see my dough has sort of doubled, so I want to start doing some stretch and folds. I'm going to wet my hands. And stretch and folds are very simple. You're just going to lift your dough and fold it into itself. Gently lift your dough, fold it into yourself. And then I'm turning my bowl a quarter of the way, lifting, folding. Half turn, lifting, folding. Another one. And each time you do this, you should have a better gluten stretch. I'm going to do this one more time. Not getting much stretch right now, but that's okay. And then I'm going to cover this back down and give it another half hour. Alright guys, it's been about another half hour. I'm going to do another set of stretch and folds. I am going to wet my hands. I'm scooping underneath the dough and I'm gently lifting, folding it onto itself. The dough is coming together much nicer now. Still needs a lot of time to develop that gluten, but it's coming into a nicer ball more and more. See, it's getting that stretch. Then I'm going to cover this down once again. So this is the dough coming out of my bread machine. It has been about an hour and a half. I'm going to take this dough now and turn it into some calzones. It's a very simple process. I do this probably 3 or 4 times a week because it's so simple and our family really enjoys having these calzones. Just kneading it gently, and then I'm going to divide it into about 6 to 8 parts. 6 or 8 parts. I'm doing this so that I can get an even-ish amount. Alright guys, it's time to do another stretch and fold. As you can see, my dough is changing. It's getting better. It's coming together more and more. So it's time to do another stretch and fold. I'm going to wet my hands. And I'm going to scoop under and pull up. As you can see, it's a lot better this time. Stretch and fold over. Turn the bowl, stretch and fold over. Turn, stretch and fold down. No kneading, I'm just stretching and folding my dough. And as you can see, it's coming together nicely. I just pulled some calzones from the oven. I'm going to put on some garlic butter. So I'm making the garlic butter now for my calzones. It's very simple. I have about 3/4 of a cup of butter. I'm putting some parsley. And some garlic powder. And this is ready once the butter is melted. Alright, so now I'm going to take my melted garlic butter and just slide it onto the calzones. Alright guys, welcome back. Today I'm also going to be using my Nutrimill Harvest to make some pasta for dinner. I'm not sure if I ever shared this on here before, but I'm going to be using durum wheat to make some pasta, and the Nutrimill Harvest is really good at breaking down the durum wheat and getting it ready for me to turn into some delicious pasta. I was just going to share some quick facts about durum wheat. It is one of the hard wheat varieties, and it's best known for making pasta. You can make couscous with it, bulgur, and other traditional breads. It has a very distinctive yellow color, so I'll show you what that is. It has a very distinctive yellow hue. It's a great source of iron, magnesium, phosphorus, and B vitamins, like we've shared before in previous videos about hard wheat varieties. It also has antioxidant properties, so this is a very good option nutritionally for many of us. Just like other wheat varieties, when you use durum wheat fresh, you're retaining all of the natural properties that can be found in flour. You're going to get the bran, you're going to get the germ, you're going to get the endosperm, and all of that is what's going to give you a whole nutrition approach to eating. Putting that against commercially milled flour, you're going to get less vitamins, less nutrients, and so if you're looking for a nutrient-dense meal for your family, using freshly milled flour, whether durum wheat, hard white wheat, soft white wheat, or any of the other wheat varieties, alongside other whole food options, you're going to give your family a more nutrient-dense meal. Durum wheat has a really good flavor. It's sweet, it's kind of nutty, and it has a rich wheat aroma. It's a very complex flavor, especially when you compare it to commercially milled flour. It has a lot of fiber, and it has a great mineral availability. Like I said before, you're going to have a lot of iron, magnesium, zinc included in this flour. It also has a very strong dough structure, so it can be used if you have a very strong dough bread that you're trying to make. You can use durum wheat as an option. What I would do is to cut my flour with durum. So if you're going to be making a yeast bread, for example, and you want to use a hard white wheat, then you can substitute part of your total amount of flour. You can do half hard white wheat and then half durum. That is going to give you a nice balance of flavor. Like I said before, this can be used to make pasta, which is what I primarily use it for. I've shared before my top 5 wheat varieties that I keep in my kitchen, and since then I have dwindled it down to 3. Primarily, I store hard white wheat for all of my yeast breads, and I will store soft white wheat for anything that needs baking powder or baking soda. So if you think pancakes, muffins, or other cakes, I'm pulling for a soft wheat variety. But anytime I'm making pasta, I'm making pasta with durum wheat. So those are my top 3 wheats that I keep in my pantry at all times, because with a hard wheat variety, I can make pretty much anything that we want to eat that requires yeast or sourdough. And with a soft white wheat, I can make anything that requires baking powder or baking soda. Pasta doesn't take either of those, and so I keep durum specifically for making pasta. But you can also use durum to make things like artisan breads, flatbreads. You can make pizza dough, you can make focaccia dough. There are lots of things that you can do with durum. So overall, I like using durum. It has a great flavor. It has a high protein content. It has a lot of fiber, lots of nutrients and minerals and antioxidants. And this is a wonderful addition to anybody's kitchen, especially if you're embracing the from scratch cooking. You're going to want this on your shelf if you're using freshly milled flour, because it can be used as a reliable wheat option for making pasta. So today I'm going to be making the pasta for dinner, and I'm going to be using a recipe from Lovely Bell Bakes. And since I'm using someone else's recipe, I'm going to measure out the ingredients so that I can get the consistency that I'm expecting. I'm in the process of developing my own pasta recipe, but until then, I'm going to go with one that I know works really well. This is one of the recipes I've been using from the very beginning when I was starting my fresh milled flour journey. I really like it. It's very simple and it only takes a few ingredients, and so I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that right now. For this recipe, we're going to need 500 grams of freshly milled durum wheat, or you can also use kamut according to the developer of the recipe. I will link her link in the description box so that you can do your own research and figure out what works best for you. But I'm going to measure out 500 grams of wheat. It calls for 1 egg and 7 grams of salt, and then up to 160 grams of water. That's it. Very simple, and you get delicious pasta every single time. So let's do it. I'm going to turn on my scale, and I'm going to zero it out. Put my bowl on, zero that again. Alright, so very simple. We need 500 grams. Almost. Almost. And I'm sure if I'm over by 1 or 2 grams, it's really not that big of a deal. But like everyone else, I want to see that perfectly measured out. So in my bowl, I have 500 grams here. Alright, so I'm going to turn on my Nutrimill Harvest to have my wheat berries. Again, this is durum wheat. I'm going to mill it into flour and then turn that into some delicious pasta. Once again, I have some finely ground powdery flour. All right, so my flour is ready to be turned into pasta. I just have to weigh out a few more ingredients, so let's do that right now. I'm going to combine my egg with my water to create a quick mixture, and I need approximately 140 grams of water, up to 160. I'm going to have to figure that out once the machine gets going to see if I need to add just a touch more water. So I'm going to zero this off because I have my one egg in there already. And then I'm going to measure out 140 grams of water. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You want to get close, just don't go over too much. All right, I'll pause there. It's a little bit over, but that's okay. So I have my egg and my water ready. I have my flour ready. Now I just have to measure out my salt. So I'm going to zero this out one more time. And then I'm going to zero that one more time to get my salt. I need 7 grams of salt. All right. Okay, very good. So we have the 3 main things that we need. I'm going to get my pasta machine and then we're going to get this going. Alright, so it's time to make the pasta. I've already milled my flour and I've already measured out my salt, and I have combined the egg and the water. This is a very simple machine to use. I'm using the Philips 7000 machine, and it's going to mix the dough for me and it's going to extrude the pasta for me, and you can have fresh pasta any day of the week in no time. I absolutely love this machine. So I am going to add my salt, add all my flour, and then I'm going to put the lid on. So at the top here, there's an on button. I'm just going to press that. I'm going to hit the on button and it's going to start mixing. As it mixes, I'm going to slowly add this mixture. I like to hold back a little bit to give it a chance to mix. So this is why you want to mix the egg and the water together so that it goes in a uniform way. So I'm not sure if you can see, but on the sides here, sometimes the flour gets trapped. So what I like to do, this is only a 3-minute cycle. So you have to stay next to the machine or you're gonna come back and your pasta would be extruded and the dough might not have been ready. So it's about 2 minutes in. I'm going to pause it and then I'm going to remove the lid. This is what the dough looks like now. Still very crumbly, which is what you're looking for. You're not looking for a traditional dough that comes together when you mix by hand. You still want it to be sand-like and crumbly. So do not add any more liquid. Do not add any more flour. Just trust the process that it's going to work out. What I'm doing here is just making sure there's no trapped flour on the sides. And then I'm going to put the lid back on and finish the cycle. Once the 3-minute cycle is finished, I'm going to turn the machine off for about 15 minutes. In those 15 minutes, my flour will have the opportunity to hydrate. Freshly milled flour needs hydration time. So anytime you can give the dough some time to just soak in all the liquid you have added to either a batter or to a dough, that's going to benefit you. It's going to give you a better end product. So I'm at 1 minute and 51 seconds left on the cycle. I'm going to let it run through to the end, and then I'm going to turn the machine off, set a timer on my phone for 15 minutes, and then when I come back, I am going to run the 3-minute cycle again. Give the dough time to hydrate, and then I'll come back, knead it a little bit more, and then I'll extrude the pasta. A little bit of an extra step, but I still find this process much simpler than making pasta by hand, which I still enjoy doing, but on a busy weeknight, this comes in quite handy. So now I'm going to run the machine to finish the cycle. So I'm standing next to this to make sure that I don't walk away, and then the machine continues to go, because what happens is if I just walk away right now, when the 3-minute cycle is done, the machine is going to go right into the next section, which is to extrude. And again, I want my dough to have time to absorb all the liquid that I've added. So I'm going to stand here just for a few more minutes, at this point a few more seconds, and allow the cycle to finish. Then I'll turn the machine off. One thing I really like about this machine is that it's almost whisper quiet. It's really not that loud, which is wonderful for kitchen appliances. Many of them can be really loud. Alright, we're coming up to the last 10 seconds. I'm just going to let the machine go, and then I'm going to turn it off. Alright, the cycle is done. I'm turning it off. Again, I'm going to set the timer for 15 minutes. And then I'll just let the dough sit and hydrate in that time. Alright, so in the 15 minutes that it's going to take my dough to get hydrated, I'm going to just chop up a few vegetables. I have some bell pepper here, a tomato, and some onions, because I'm pairing this pasta today with some shrimp. So I have my shrimp already defrosting here. Once this is defrosted, I'm going to season it lightly, and I'm going to add this all to my pasta dish. So these have already been washed. So my vegetables are chopped and ready to go. I have some onions, some bell peppers, and tomatoes. I have about 5 more minutes for this to be extruded, and I have about 5 more minutes before my shrimp is ready. Alright, so my shrimp is defrosted. I'm going to season this lightly. A bit of salt, some red pepper flakes, some parsley, and what I call my all-purpose seasoning. All of this is to taste, but very simple ingredients. I will also add a touch of paprika. The thing with scratch cooking is that if you're cooking for your family on a regular basis, you're going to learn what they like, what they don't like, what seasonings work best with what proteins, and the more you prepare meals, the more comfortable you will become in the kitchen. Alright, so this is ready to go, and so are my veggies. I'm not going to do anything else right now because what needs to happen is for my pasta to be extruded. Once this extrudes, I'm going to get it into a pot of boiling water. So I'm going to get that pot going right now so that I can just take it from the container that it's going to extrude in and put it right in the pot on the stove. Okay, so it's time to do a second round of this dough cycle, and then I'm going to allow it to extrude. Okay, and just like that, we have extruded pasta made with freshly milled flour. I used durum wheat here, and I milled it in my Nutrimill Harvest. Okay, so my water is boiling. I'm going to pop the pasta in. I've already salted the pot. The great thing about freshly milled flour pasta, it only takes a few minutes to cook. So while this is boiling, I'm going to be working on the shrimp. Okay, I'm going to add my vegetables now. Alright, so here is my dough. If you remember, this is my no-knead dough that I've been stretching and folding all day. It is now time to shape these and get these into the oven. I'm just going to lightly grease my hands with oil. At this stage, you don't want to introduce any new flour because that's when your product will come out gritty because the new flour hasn't had time to absorb any liquids. So I'm just going to take this. As you can see, it has a nice stretch to it. I'm going to divide this into hamburger style rolls. Okay, so our shrimp dinner is finished. Freshly milled flour pasta is pretty delicate, but it's absolutely delicious. We're having some pasta bowls for dinner today. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for sticking around with me today. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me a lot. As a quick reminder, I do have my freshly milled flour cookbook available for purchase on Amazon, Simply Fresh. All the details will be in the description box down below. I am also a new affiliate with Nutrimill, and if you would like to purchase a Nutrimill Harvest feel free to check the description box. I will have a discount code for you as the customer. You will get $20 off of your purchase. So check the description box for all the details. You will use coupon code For Your Heart and Home and also receive $20 off your purchase of a Nutrimill Harvest. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it down in the comment section down below. Let me know what you're making in your kitchen this week. Thanks again for being here. I will see you in the next video.